HBAR still is one of the largest gems that I'm holding in my portfolio, and I have been holding HBAR for quite some time. Bought most of it back in 2020, and today, I don't regret a single buy at all when it comes to HBAR. Even some of the buys that I bought during 2021 around 30 cents, some of those I'm still holding. And I'm not concerned at all because when I look at this space, right, I mainly look at XRP, right? We go back to XRP because, XRP has shown everyone why time in this market pays off. Yeah, I know XRP only went to about $3.60 so far this cycle. I still expect XRP to go significantly higher, but the main thing to look at is XRP went from 30, 40, 50 cents all the way to $3.60. ADA back in 2020 to 2021 went from single digit cents to $3+. When I'm looking at HBAR today, it's sitting at number 18. You guys already know that I've been talking about HBAR being a top 5 giant. That has not changed. I still believe that HBAR is going to hit the top 5 this cycle, especially with all of the announcements that we have been seeing this year. But first, let's talk about the price chart because, again, the market has been a little bit brutal for altcoin holders. I mean, I know that it's not easy, right? I understand that if we're looking at this space from just an average investor's point of view, okay, seeing altcoins that have made a high going all the way back to the beginning of the year, and we're still just kind of chopping and we're selling off, and it looks like, we're still creating lower lows on the chart, and it's been 8 months. I fully understand where everyone's frustration is coming from. I get it, right? We've been waiting for so long. But I want you guys to realize that this is no different than other cycles. Most altcoins will get wiped out. Then we will start to see the floor form, and then we will start to see the big push back to the upside. Right now, we're mainly just watching Bitcoin and Ethereum. And I know that we hate to hear that, talking about Bitcoin and Ethereum, because when we think about some of these projects like HBAR, for so long, we've been hearing about how Hedera is going to power this and power that. And it's, one of the strongest utility-based projects, but we're looking at it and we're like, all right, well, if it has so much utility, why does it rely on Bitcoin and Ethereum to move? And well, the truth is, and I'm just going to be honest with you guys, we're not in a utility-driven bull market. We're not in the phase of enterprises and institutional players utilizing these networks at scale. No, absolutely not. But when we do get into a utility-based cycle, that's when these types of projects become absolutely massive. But we're not there yet. But the good news is that in front of us, we do have HBAR trailing in this downtrend wedge still. We just tapped the May highs, and I'm watching to see if this is going to hold, especially on the weekly, right? On the weekly, if we're just going to look at the weekly real quick, we do not want to see a loss on the weekly of this 20.5 cent, almost 21 cent level. We want to maintain these lows. We do not want to lose this, and we want to start building out a strong floor here. If we don't, then we risk going into this red zone almost down here, which is roughly like 16.5 cents to about 19.5 cents. And I would like for us to avoid this, but it's definitely possible that we do target that. So just be cautious here if we do lose that weekly low. Looking at this on the 3-day, we do have a little bit of a higher level here. We already kind of, trailed around it. We did tap that lower trend line. We did have slightly, a bit of a push back above it, but again, we still need to just be a little bit cautious here on a lot of these altcoins while Bitcoin and Ethereum just continue to range and they gain more and more dominance over the markets. But HBAR still looks pretty good here. Just be cautious of those levels for buy opportunities to arise. Have some stablecoins on the sidelines just in case, especially going into the FOMC meeting. Volatility is definitely going to pick up leading into the 17th. So, just be cautious with that. But looking at HBAR, yeah, I do see HBAR being a top 5 project. If we're thinking about top 5, we're talking about almost $120 billion currently just to get to the top 5. I mean, even just to get to the top 6, right, it takes about $112 billion. Now, if we're taking Tether out of the equation, then yeah, the top 5 would be 112K or 112 billion still, just kind of going off of this. But, if we're still looking at this market, we're still very early on into the altcoin mania, and these levels could significantly rise. I mean, I still think that by the end of the cycle, to get into the top 10, you're going to have almost $100 billion in market cap anyways, which means a lot of these projects are destined for a lot more growth. And if we're thinking about HBAR, I mean, guys, just to get into Solana's position, we're talking about almost a 12x return, a $2.63 HBAR. I know that sounds wild, but this is 100% possible. And if we're thinking about, BNB, well, BNB is a 12.7x, $120 billion market cap, $2.79. This is 100% possible. I know it sounds crazy right now. I get it. I completely understand. But guys, think about what's been happening so far in 2025. I mean, we are witnessing some of the largest moves that we've ever imagined in crypto. The US government embracing crypto. The US government coming out and saying, hey, we want to actually utilize this technology for financial data and record keeping. And also regulatory bodies like the SEC and the CFTC also working together to make sure that we have full-on clarity for this space. And if we're thinking about that, that means that we will get into that utility-driven cycle that we've been talking about for so long. And that's where a lot of these projects, market cap doesn't matter anymore. It really, everything around value is determined by utilization at scale. And with Hedera, there's so much adoption happening. Now let's talk about a few things. Let's address tokenization, because there's a big update from CoinDesk. This is on September 10th, right? So we have 5 days until this meeting, or this, it's basically a conference, right? So this is CoinDesk Policy and Regulation. This is on September 10th. On September 10th at CoinDesk, Policy and Regulation top minds from Hedera, Liberty City VC, and Goldman Sachs will discuss RWA tokenization and regulatory adaptation. So yeah, I mean, this is definitely a big one. We have Hedera with Goldman Sachs. We love to see that. I mean, Goldman Sachs has been really openly talking about tokenization in a big way. They've been getting behind the space, I mean, for quite some time now. It almost feels like all of these big institutional players, asset management companies, they're all on board. Like BNY Mellon just partnered up with Ripple to be the #1 custodian of ROUSD. I mean, this is crazy to think about. I mean, maybe it's just me, but for those that have been around crypto for quite some time, if we're thinking about some of these announcements, they are insane. They're insane because we go back just 4 years ago, and we never would have imagined some of these announcements happening. BNY becoming a major custodian for Ripple's stablecoin. Even a Ripple stablecoin back in 2021 sounded ridiculous. Today, well, it's just the normal. But I bring up tokenization because we have been tracking RWA.XYZ, specifically Hedera, for a bit of time. We've been waiting to see a major release of the data behind Hedera, how much value is tied to Hedera, and how many tokenized assets will be tied to Hedera as well. We have yet to see any value hit on RWA.XYZ because we're still in the early, phases of this being tracked. But there's 8 assets now on chain. And we can see that most of this is coming from Libre Capital. This is all through institutional funds. We also have US Treasuries. And then we also have Diamond Standard Coin, which this is commodities. We know that Diamond Standard, I think that the value tied to Diamond Standard was close to $1 billion, if not more. I know that there was one announced back in January of this year that it was like a crazy value. I think it was almost $8 billion or something crazy like that. I might be wrong, but I just remember there being so many announcements around like Joel's and Gems. So it makes a lot of sense that, we see Diamond Standard here. On top of that, we also have Red Swan, which is tokenized real estate. I'm very excited to see how much more value will be added to this. I just want to see how much value is added to these ones that we currently have in front of us, because I'm sure that there's going to be other ones like Archix, for an example, that get added, but I want to see how much value is behind some of these tokenized assets, because we kind of have an idea, but we don't know for certain until they are fully trackable on chain. But very excited about this. I'm waiting patiently. I think that it's going to be a big one. Now, let's talk about the big elephant in the room, which is new. Wyoming has chosen Hedera to host Front, FRNT, the first US state-issued stable token backed by dollars and treasuries. That's right. The first state-issued stablecoin on Hedera. This is incredible to see. Do you guys remember when I said, and let me just go through this little verification. Do you guys remember when I said that if we go to the use cases on Hedera's website and we go to the stablecoin studio, do you guys remember when I said that the adoption around these pieces of Hedera are going to start igniting as we start to see, clarity, and we start to see adoption picking up around these specific things? Like, stablecoin adoption on Hedera is now growing in a big way. Again, one thing that we are waiting on is PHPX, that Philippine token with major Philippine banks. That's also something that is utilizing the stablecoin studio. We're waiting on that still. But also, we have the AI studio that's seeing a lot of, growth around. There's a lot of dev activity within the AI studio. Then we also have the tokenization studio, which has been, on fire. We've talked about it. And then Hedera Guardian has been making so many big moves as well this year. I mean, all of these pieces of Hedera have been seeing so much traction. It's extremely exciting. And again, when we think about this Frontier stable token, I am very excited about this because, again, this is a state-issued stablecoin. There's major partners tied to this, like Layer Zero, Fireblocks, the network firm Franklin Templeton, and then Inca Digital as well. And this is just the beginning. I want you guys to understand that this is just one state-issued stablecoin. There is going to be a stablecoin for every single state on chain. I'm telling you guys right now, this is going to ignite that big push. But the fact that this is issued out on Hedera is so exciting. Here we have Hedera has been selected for Wyoming's Frontier Stable Token, FRNT, the first US state-issued stablecoin, trusted, fast, compliant. The future of public sector payments is here. Now, if we're looking into this announcement, okay, here we have the announcement itself. Now we have Hedera was selected as the only additional blockchain to be a candidate for FRNT during the commission's Q2 evaluation, having met stringent criteria for speed, reliability, and regulatory alignment. Again, when we think about Hedera, Hedera is in a completely different league of its own. I've said the technology around Hedera is extremely efficient for use cases like this. Now, they do talk about the backing, how FRNT was fully, created. We already kind of got the idea around that, but we have here our goal with FRNT is to set a new standard for how states leverage digital assets to better serve the public. The commission selected Hedera for candidacy because its technical edge aligns with our commitment to security and compliance. Hedera was chosen for FRNT because it delivers what modern payments require: fast settlement, predictable cost, and trusted governance. Transactions on Hedera finalized in seconds with low fixed fees, making it suitable for everything from retail purchases and tax refunds to real-time disaster relief and instant public payroll systems. The network is carbon negative and capable of processing 10,000 transactions per second, delivering the scale and sustainability needed for real-world finance, while its Hedera Council governance model ensures regulatory alignment and long-term stability. Hedera is already trusted by governments and enterprises, moving from pilots to real-world adoption. Wyoming's selection of Hedera shows how responsible innovation can deliver real-world financial solutions, setting a precedent for other states and ultimately the world to follow. And again, this is that confirmation that, yes, other states are going to be looking into this. They're going to see what's been happening around, what Wyoming's been doing and seeing how successful this launch will be. And they're all going to follow what Wyoming just did. This is extremely exciting for the entire industry. It's extremely exciting for the stablecoin market as well. And I think that most people are going to be looking at this and say, well, why was Hedera chosen? They're going to do their research, they're going to see the value behind this, and then they are going to realize that Hedera is not just your typical, crypto project. No, it's a completely different network that has some of the best technology that this space has to offer. And the states are realizing this, these institutional players are realizing this, the enterprise players have been realizing this. This is extremely exciting. This is what I've been telling you guys about, right? When we think about Hedera, there's so much left to be announced. There's so much happening behind Hedera. And if we're thinking about the price of HBAR, a top 5 position is something that I see happening. I don't, even if we're thinking about the top 10, right? Say for so we just get into the top 10. That's ADA, right? That's still a big push. If we think about ADA, right? Let me refresh this. I know it's a little bit broken. Sometimes it kind of just breaks on itself. ADA is still a 3.25x from where we are at now. This is a 71 cent HBAR. This is still price discovery. This is still a new all-time high. But I just am looking at these all-time highs from 2021 for some of these projects, and I just don't see how HBAR is not going to hit these levels. There's no way that we don't see a big push on HBAR. With all of the announcements, with every move that Hedera has made this year so far, with all of the activity on the network and around the ecosystem, HBAR is making sure its name is known and that the noise is loud enough for everyone to hear. Everyone needs to lock in and pay attention to what's been happening here. Stablecoins are starting to launch on Hedera, which is also going to lead to much more value and transactions moving over Hedera, creating demand for the underlying gas token, again, HBAR. Then tokenized RWAs starting to, get tracked. I'm very excited to see how much value is tied to, HBAR in that sense. Again, with RWAs tokenized on chain, the same argument can be made. Transactions, volume, value, moving over the network, creating demand for HBAR. It's a recipe for growth, right? Price action growth, value growth. I'm very excited about the future here for Hedera. Again, we've been talking about it all year long. The announcements are getting bigger. The announcements are getting more consistent. This tells us that adoption around the Hedera ecosystem is picking up. And this is great to see. So with that being said, I hope that you guys enjoyed this video. If you guys did, definitely like, subscribe, turn notifications on because more free content. You guys are more than welcome to follow me on Twitter and join the free Discord in the description below. And with that being said, guys, it's been Nick. Thanks for watching. Peace out.